Years on reminds me of the old CB days. Old number four got your ears on. That was my grandpa's handle. Old number four. It's it was his forklift. So he drove forklift for Bohemia, um, and Kaiser Grove for years, and that's where he ended. And his forklift was number four, so that was his handle. Was old number four. Uh, you know, as we talk about the things, last couple weeks and this week, I think sometimes it's even hard for us as Christians to kind of wrap our minds around these things. I want you to know that when you try to talk to people about these things, about this spiritual warfare, about what we're going to look at today in the devil. Bill, the title of my lesson is "Know Your Enemy." Just so you know, I did title it for you. Um, so so know your enemy, right? That's so important. And when you talk about the devil and how he's here, and and how we're fighting against him, people look at you with a weird eye, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. And it didn't make sense to me when people came and talked to me. I've got some folks that I'm trying to help. They're going through some stuff, and try not to, like talk about the Bible, but and sometimes it's even hard to tell them that you're praying for them, because they're like, what? Like, that's just, they don't get it, right? And so it's hard. Know that we're on the narrow road that nobody else is really on, and people are going to look at you funny sometimes, and sometimes that's not comfortable. It's not comfortable for you. It's not comfortable for them. And so we have to find a way to communicate that to them. But the most important thing, as we've always stressed here, is just living the life. We don't necessarily have to really talk about it, but they just have to see it. If we live it out, it took me 15 years. You just never know if we're that one that's walking in front of somebody, and that God's the one that put us there, and like we're the one just to at least show them the light. May not even have to talk about it, but them hearing us talk is important, because like I've said, it's been a real struggle. Really the last couple of years, having slid backwards quite a ways, and then God says it, and it is hard to have. The hardest thing we do is living by faith, is believing the things that we don't see. Um, but when we're looking with spiritual eyes, we do see those things. And so that's the important thing. Is like, it may not be obvious. We may not be, walking through the Red Sea with the water, up there, and walking on dry land. It may not be that obvious. But even when it is that obvious, those people get it. So sometimes, seeing really isn't the biggest deal, right? It's really just believing that what we're talking about is real and is true. So we're going to talk about. We've been talking about last week, that flesh versus spirit battle. Really, that's the internal battle, that we have going on. Us deciding to live by the spirit, to put away the deeds of the flesh, and that's a choice that we make. Because, as I said, like, as Christians, we can still do whatever we want. And as I read back through some of the stuff, and I was, I really appreciate when Paul was talking in Romans 7 there. He's talking about the things that he was doing, but he hated them. He was doing the things that he hated, you know, and that's what I do. I've explained some of the things that I've kind of slid back on, right? And as those things happen, I do. It's that hate, like, man, it just bothers me. And when you lose that hate, that's going to be a problem, right? You gotta continue to hate it, and continue to use the weapons. Which I don't think we're going to get to the weapons today, but we're going to get to it, hopefully next week, that we have, to help us to overcome. But you gotta hate it. And I appreciate that when Paul's like, I'm doing the things that I don't want to, and I hate it, and it's in the flesh. He's talking about in the flesh, because that's where he was at when he does those things. But he has the power. Like how he goes on and says he has the power through Christ. Thanks be to God. And then we just talks about that flesh versus spirit battle that goes on. So there's the internal. Like, if it isn't bad enough that we're just kind of battling ourselves, right? And battling all the things out here, we know that the devil's out here and he's against us too. Like, he's using people, he's and knows our weaknesses, and is using those things against us as well. People have no hope. I went to a suicidal call the other day, and we go to a lot of them. It's not something I really think as law enforcement we should go to. This might sound harsh, but it's not a crime to kill yourself. And a lot of times we go to these things and we ended up sometimes killing these people or we get killed. It's just they're tough situations when they're alone and they're just either sending text messages or calling like we shouldn't be going. We just shouldn't be going. And so when we go to these calls, I'm always like, man, I don't like them. But we went to one. There was actually a guy in an old folks home, really nice old folks home, was texting his friends saying goodbye. So, we're gonna go check on the old guy, right? Um, and so he's on the third floor, and so we get in the elevator and we go up there, and man, it was. I tell you what, I've never been really tore up too much about some of these calls. This guy was a 26-year veteran state trooper. Had all his accolades and all his accomplishments, and on the one bedroom wall, and he had uh, three blacktails in there, shoulder mounts, and two giant antelope, and so it wasn't my call; it was another younger officer's call. But I'm there, um, and we just start talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, man, it's just time to go," and so I'm just listening. There's no hope in this guy. I forgot that we have the assisted